Hi, friends. This week we have the opportunity to do a doctrinal mastery lesson on gaining an eternal perspective or viewing concepts and questions with an eternal perspective. These doctrinal mastery lessons are some of the best lessons that we teach and that we have the opportunity to produce. So please don't skip those as they're great opportunities to teach the students skills that they're going to apply now and as well as later on in their lives. This lesson is a fantastic lesson. I want to go through some of the things with you. The purpose of this lesson, it's lesson 167. The purpose of this lesson, one, is to help them get familiar with these principles of doctrinal mastery, but this lesson can help students examine concepts and questions with an eternal perspective and see things more like Jesus Christ does. So that's really the focus of what this one is all about. The beginning activity is great. I hope you use this image when it talks about the eye of faith. This is a really neat image. It's one of those that flips and you can see a different perspective of it. You could put that on a screen, help students to maybe take 60 seconds individually or in groups or pairs, and help them to kind of describe what they think they're seeing, and then have maybe one or two groups kind of recap. What did you discuss? What did you talk about? And then have them look at the actual picture and describe that process. And this kind of goes through this pretty well, explain from a different angle how they line up, and how viewing it from a different perspective helped them to see something that they didn't see before. There's a video part of that as well, super helpful just to kind of gain that perspective for the students. I like this part right here, what can we learn about perspective, but then what spiritual lessons are shared. And they'll come up with great opportunities and great principles from that will lead into Elder Anderson's quote. I really like that. Then we jump straight into the words of prophets here, to try and help us to see, all right, well, what sometimes makes that hard to see with a spiritual lens? And great questions underneath the quote. So really like that readiness activity. I hope you'd use that in your class to kind of get the students engaged and get them thinking, as it's going to lead right into doctrinal mastery. This part of seeing as the Lord sees, act in faith, examine with internal perspective, and seek further understanding through divinely appointed sources. Those three things are things that repetition is going to help to kind of ingrain them in the minds of the students. Now, you can adjust those if you want. ASK is the acronym, acquiring spiritual knowledge. You could put act in faith, seek with an eternal perspective, know through divinely appointed sources, if you think that that's going to help your students get that down of what that might mean. But it really is a great opportunity to help them to see, how do I look at my questions or my concerns, right? Some might be familiar with this process if you have some older youth that have been through seminary. Some may not be familiar with it. You could ask the students to really kind of gauge where they're at and say, hey, what does it mean to examine with an eternal perspective, and see what they know. That will help you to know where to focus on and what to teach, and how much time to spend in the next part when it says read paragraphs 8 through 10 in the core document. It might be helpful to take them on their phones and walk them through so they can find the core document or how to search it. But if you ask the students what they know about acquiring spiritual knowledge or what they know about examining with internal perspective first, then you'll kind of know where you should go and how much time you should spend on the learning part before we get to the practice. By asking them, what did you learn from the paragraphs? You're helping them to identify principles. You may even just ask, what line from paragraphs 8 through 10 best describes what it looks like. And that way you're kind of founded in the document. There's benefits to both, being founded right in the text or having them put it in their own words. There's benefits of both of those. But ideally, we're trying to get to, we seek the help of the Holy Ghost in order to see things as the Lord sees them. Now, there's scriptures here that are great. They have to offer the topical guide or these references, depending on how much time you have, depending on the level of your students. These references will get the principles out clearly as well, making sure that we're founded in the scriptures and that they can see what the Lord is saying, and that they can gain trust in Him that He knows all of it, that He knows everything. I like this part right here to help the students think about what they read. Ask them to write a summary. Once again, that just helps them to identify principles and make sure that it's clear. The practice here is pretty neat. With Ryan recently graduated from high school. He starts dating somebody not of the faith, and he considers moving in together with this person. And so here's a practice to say, okay, well, how would you look at this with an eternal perspective? Well, part of that is identifying the assumptions that Ryan might have, or just worldly views that he might have to justify his action, which is what is right here. If Ryan had a limited worldly perspective, why might that sound like a good idea? And then you're going to try to look at that with an eternal perspective and say, okay, what are the principles and things to help us to see it the way that the Lord sees it? I really appreciated in this lesson that they take you to the family proclamation or the strength of youth. I would also encourage, you could even break that up and say, hey, what if we looked at doctrinal mastery references? Would that help Ryan's decision making? If you go with the part where Ryan's making these assumptions, it might be helpful to list some of those assumptions on the board so that when you find truths from the strength of youth or the family proclamation, that you can connect them and say, okay, Ryan's feeling this, but the family proclamation teaches this, and words of prophets and scriptures teach that, and that could be helpful too, just to be able to line those up and identify that the scriptures and words of prophets address the assumptions that Ryan is making to make the decision. If your students haven't had much practice with this, additional resources, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a video here that's great that could be helpful on reframing issues and questions. I would even recommend, if you haven't done this before, that after you've read the scriptures or had them go into the topical guide, you may want to jump down to this video and have them kind of consider how this girl looks at things with an eternal perspective and what that looks like, and how she reframed an issue. And then instead of choosing a question or a social issue right here, you could use Ryan's situation as that question or social issue, and you could use that to help them then to practice this experience. The worksheets here, the little reframing thing can be done really well. You could use this, hey, what's her limited perspective from the video? How did that change with her friend, right? And then you could say, well, what's Ryan's limited perspective? And then how does that change with what we studied? Just a couple of helps with this lesson. It's a fantastic opportunity to help them to gain insight for themselves and to practice these parts of acquiring spiritual knowledge. We want them to be so competent and know that they can do this. And practice right here really sets them up for what they're going to do in life when they face real tough questions and when situations are hard. So good luck with this lesson. It's fantastic. I think you'll have a great experience with it, and it will really bless your students.